So if we have an individual, maybe they didn't hate running, maybe they've actually always liked running, but they just haven't really done it as a enjoyable activity or something to do competitively, and they say, you know what, I want to make running a thing. I think I'm going to start doing that. Having no knowledge of how to move forward, what are some initial considerations that somebody like that should take into account?
So if there's someone that, well, I won't talk as if I'm coaching them, but if they're just going to go for it, one, you want to make sure that there aren't any current injuries present. Something simple that I screen is like, can you tolerate walking for 30 to 40 minutes? Can you stand on one leg without discomfort? Can you hop without discomfort? So kind of taking them through a battery of tests. And that's something that they can do themselves, be like, all right, am I good? But if they haven't run in a long time, like I'm talking 6 months or more, I would highly recommend that they also are including a lot of fitness walking. So that's like arms pumping, brisk walk, anything between 3.2 to 3.5 miles per hour. Just making sure that they're increasing the overall time on their feet, but at a decreased load than just running 7 days a week. I would also recommend that they start with a walk-run program. So something as basic as run 1 minute, walk 1 minute, repeat 10 times, and then as they start to build up their endurance, building up the time of running and decreasing the time of walking until they can sustain about 40 minutes consistently. So it will look a little bit different for everyone, but like I have a guy right now that I'm coaching who has run marathons before, but has taken a significant amount of time off and probably hasn't run in, call it 6 months. So right now I have him walking, like fitness walking for up to 30 minutes, about 3 times a week. And I only have him running 2 days a week. And that's a combination of a walk run. And right now, like he's tolerating that very well. And probably within the next week or so, we'll add that 3rd day of running. But that's something that I tell people in the beginning, like, just trust the process. Like, you just need time on your feet right now because there's so much time to train for this marathon that he has in November that, like, why are we going to go straight to 5 days a week of running and, set him up for an unsuccessful training cycle?
So you're saying there should be a progression.
Yes.
Classic PT. No, it's so funny. I see that. I think people forget that type of walking is an option. It's either do exactly what I'm doing now, which is nothing at all, or just start running as much running as I can possibly fit into my schedule. And they're surprised when things start to kind of fall off the rails a little bit, or if that were to happen, like, oh, I used to do this all the time. Because I see, I'm sure you do too, but I see people who haven't run in years and just, somebody bought them a pair of shoes for Christmas and they're like, oh, I'll start running again. I used to like it 20 years ago, and then bam, they spike their workload and running and they kind of fall off that cliff, and then we're digging a hole. Do you see that a lot as well?
Yeah, not necessarily with multiple years off, but even just a couple months, they'll literally be like, oh, I don't run in the winter. And then they'll start back up with spring training. And the first 4 weeks of, running in April, well, in Maine, spring starts in June. But, those first couple weeks, everyone gets themselves in trouble. And they're not just going out for like leisurely runs, like to get used to it. They're like, you know what? I'm going to go do a speed workout. And I'm like, why? Why? Like, you've not run in 6 months and you're going to start with a speed workout.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's rewind.
It's like framing running, I think, doesn't quite, like if you were to say, what if you injured your knee, and to the same person we're having this conversation, if you injured your knee, would you start rehabbing it by going out and doing box jumps as hard and as fast as you possibly could? Or would you do some like slow, easy lunges and squats and just see where you're at? And they'd probably be like, well, yeah, that's not going to do that. That's stupid. But it's the kind of the same idea, but it's not, the context just doesn't quite click with that. But it's, if anything, you know, running is a very plyometric activity, and you've got many times your body weight going into your tissues with every step. And if you haven't prepared for that, you know, these are the types of things that we can see. So it's funny that you say that. Your first webinar, titled The 3 E's to Running: Easy, Efficient, Effective. Mm-hmm. Obviously, you're going to go into more detail during the webinar itself, but can you give a brief synopsis of what those terms mean to you as a clinician, as you're educating the endurance athlete, but also what the endurance athlete should take away from those 3 terms as well?
Yeah. So this was like the first presentation that I ever put together to just get the information out there that training doesn't have to be overcomplicated. It doesn't need to be filled with these words that for like and tempo and like all of this verbiage that we're like, what? You know, it could be really simplified. So I want it to be easy, not only to apply into a workout, but easy to understand. So I go over like really basic warm-ups. You don't have to spend 40 minutes stretching, because you're not going to stretch before a workout. You don't have to spend 80 hours a week foam rolling. You know, it could be very simplified, but also introducing the principles of strength training that's been shown to be highly effective in complementing an endurance athlete's training program because it improves efficiency. So, you know, showing how all of these things can go hand in hand to make a more well-rounded training cycle.
When you start to work with somebody, I want to talk about the easy component there. Mm-hmm. When you start to frame things for them in a way that sort of demystifies a lot of the training program, do many of them or some of them have like a light bulb moment where it's suddenly like you've pulled back the veil and they're now seeing running as this, not so much as like this big complex endeavor, but more like, oh, this seems more manageable and I can see myself doing that. Does that happen ever or often?
Yeah, I would say probably more with the people that I've been coaching, because then they get a window into my thought process and how I'm allocating the workouts. Like I've had people who are used to running 5 or 6 days a week, and I actually bring them down to 3 or 4 days and throw in a little bit of fitness walking, either as a warm-up and or cool down, or even just as a workout by itself. And they're like, wow, like I actually feel a lot better and I feel stronger during my workouts. Like I feel better and I'm doing less. And I'm like, yeah.
How does that initial pitch go? Like when you say like, we're going to do a little less running and more of these other things, do they start to pump the brakes and like panic because suddenly you're suggesting they do less of it?
I've gotten a little bit of pushback. People definitely feel uneasy about it at first. Like the first couple of weeks, they're definitely like, okay, she knows what she's doing. But like I'll put in their program, like it'll be a day off, and I say, go for a walk if you feel antsy. Like,
nice.
I know you're used to doing something 7 days a week.
Right.
So you can go for a short walk, but really like your body wants rest. So once I feel like after 2 or 3 weeks, it starts to set in and they get it. But yeah, I've definitely had a couple of people of like, are you sure I shouldn't be doing more?
Yeah. So you'll build in some outlets for the people that you figure probably need them?
Yes.
Nice. Smart.